Hey, Duvid here. Almost finished with Nakamura's bullet chess video. Been watching a lot of his videos. Got my books on the King's Gambit that he was making me think to talk about. We got my chess shirt on. It was making me think to talk about algorithmic versus spatial thinking. And I was watching this lecture by this neurologist, O'Keefe, who was talking about how the brain forms thought and consciousness, and these studies on like rats in mazes, where they're looking at how do rats conceptualize vision. They had certain proofs or tests that tried to demonstrate that rats could form some type of map vision where they don't have necessarily just an algorithmic program where, do this, do that, turn here, at this point, turn there, but they have more a map, fundamental representation of what's going on in flowers I made, representational vision of the geometric space that we're in. Then they first researched in rats and they found it was something in the hippocampus, and they've seen relatively similar things for humans. So it was interesting. I was watching that. I've heard about a lot of these concepts before, and I was putting that into kind of like my weekly developments in this dissonance, free will residing in the area where a higher level functioning provides a mismatch with our sense perception. And these two common methods, because it's very common to chess in all things. My father told me that he was a chess player related to chess, but told me that I think I was like 16 and driving and giving me directions and just saying you have the algebraic method of the directions, which is go this many feet and do this or do that, take the highway to exit whatever and turn south, and so on, versus a geometric representation, like you're here, there's where you want to get, here are all the streets and roads and that are available at your disposal, and there's multiple paths that you could use to get there. So for some perspective, we have both. And memory is more needed. There's the algorithmic thinking, and sometimes algorithms and spatial geometry relate. In reality, they're both describing the same thing, but they're different methods of describing the same thing that have different benefits. So most thoroughly, like in chess, you have the algorithmic understanding, which is you play, move, action, reaction. It's like check, he has to move the king, and then he wins the rook. Simple, no problem. Algorithm, what's happening on other parts of the board don't matter. You just think, okay, like I'm attacking the knight, it's the most pertinent thing on the board. There's no other major threats. If he doesn't see it, he'll take it. It'll be to his advantage. Simple, like how the brain forms thoughts. In the beginning, chess, you could just have an algorithm, like I do this, he has these possibilities, and related to those possibilities, you have this. And it's kind of like the tree branch type thinkings of, think like a grandmaster. Although like King's Crusher, Trifon, Gavril, push more towards a spatial type thinking, where it's not all algorithms and candidate moves and analysis of candidate moves. There's more just a feel and understanding of the board of spatial representations, like the sum total of your pieces controlling a certain amount of squares, which could be counted for how they program computers and the relation to artificial intelligence. And because the computers have, besides for being able to process the algorithms quicker, they might be able to have like net calculations, like control of total squares that generally the person might estimate. So on the chessboard, you could make an exact calculation, like how many squares do you control by how much, and have some sort of metric, like squares that you control, squares that your opponent controls, and that would give you some net total value that a computer might use that your average human couldn't calculate, could have an intuitive feel like, yeah, I have more space, I control more squares, without making an exact calculation, maybe like a pip count. in backhand. So we got checkmate. Pretty simple. This kid still has to double check to make sure it's checkmate. It's kind of like speed reading and chunking, where the thought of like, okay, there's a king, and you can move here, here, and going through all the possibilities. This thing in like one chunk, the king and all the squares that it could move to, and then to even chunk together multiple pieces for piece coordination. And this will relate to how the brain forms thought in really all aspects of life. Anytime, in terms of, you just think of the mind trying to form a mental map for the place we are. So here I'm in the hall of the Detroit Institute of Art. Thank God, beautiful place to play chess. The Prentice Court. When I was a kid, I volunteered at the Prentice Nursing Home, same Prentice family of altruists. And I've read the names and thought about the names on this wall so many times. It's pinned in the background like a spatial memory that someone who's their first time here, their spatial memory may not include as much of what I've generated over recognition of these patterns. So, and also kind of like a spatial, right now I'm pacing. So I have a spatial understanding of the area I'm in where I can just kind of be walking and talking at the same time. And there's a lot of relation that hopefully I'm going to develop and think about more and find better terminology to put into about the formation of thought and differentiating between the algorithmic and the spatial, which some like Puzzle Rush on ChessNet. So I played a lot of chess.com the last few months, and I've kind of reached a point, like I've seen the new technology. I got my 2 huge books on the King's Gambit here, and in terms of like memorizing algorithms in order to get a better position in the opening, and then within that advantage, the opening converting into wins. And so, I even got first in a few arena tournaments where there's hundreds of players, which is interesting, gives you a competitive, so there's always better players than me. And when you get on the internet and you have top players from around the world, I play my rating range, and I win about 50% of the games because chess.com pretty accurately pairs me against people about my own strength. So I perform about 50% on chess.net. But when you just the open forum, I'm in the top 1% of players. That the Arena Kings, where you just play as many games as possible in 30 minutes, anyone could win, because even if you lose a game, you get a bonus for winning in a streak. Because I'm top 1%, I should be able to beat the pairing structure of weaker opponents 9 out of 10 games pretty easy. And so just beating average opponents in the thought structure versus playing my own rating range. I have my weaknesses. I know where I've looked at my games and used the computer analysis. I see the openings and kind of like the better continuations, that the stronger players will put pressure on me straight in the opening. Tactics, Puzzle Rush, mental training, end games. Just looking at the computer analysis of where I went wrong in games, things I missed, positional ideas I missed, like changing the opening structure when I have possible C6 break is good or not, or missing that certain times you need the ability to go on the king side or queen side, and also kind of the concept free will exists in the state of dissonance. So like Nakamura, who will leave it open to the person. So I watch a lot of his play and kind of his extreme ability at beating largely everybody, but to just beat even players like me, he might be able to beat 10 games in a row relatively easy. And to keep your relative position safe, see the weaknesses, the King's Crusher, so the weakness of the last move, and the ego when you start playing. So if I'm playing chess online, I got a little bit of an ego to maybe prove my mental abilities. So if it's not completely altruistic, because I like coaching, I want to be able to help advance my students. So as the students get better, I have to improve my own mobility. But obviously, the kids could go on and find coaching besides me. So even if I do mostly the most basic coaching, at least as the students get better, it's easier for me to advance my own mobility. And just a question of time and kind of like mental overload, and the ability to be a stronger chess player should correspond to my ability to understand other things at a deeper level and corresponded. So I thought I had some breakthroughs this week watching that Keef thing, and I'd mentioned it a month ago to some of the Hare Krishna temple that's on my YouTube page multiple times, Luby, about, he's playing on his phone, and I was mentioning this concept of algebraic or algorithmic versus spatial thinking, and the role that plays in chess, and general theory, and so I thought I'd express that. Shavuos, Torah this week. I got my flowers there. Very good harvest this week. So blessings, holiday, giving of the Torah, wisdom. Commit myself to a year of studying wisdom, which will, it's correspond to study some chess, because I think I've seen these overall pattern recognitions. I feel my ability at the chessboard is increasing, because I'm always, I'm at the most basic level where I'm teaching people how to move the pieces that have never played the game before, and that could occasionally be older people. They're usually younger people, and a lot of people they're teaching how to move the pieces to, they're people that have been here a few times before. We had Gabriel, who's already actually has quite a bit of talent for chess, as where his brother still needs to be taught how to move the pieces. But eventually he'll reach the age where he's ready to understand how the pieces move, and he might have a talent that goes in the in the family, and good given ability, and God willing. But you see all the different kids at the level they progress, and kind of the personality comes out on the chessboard that people view and represent the world in different ways, and the concept of what's the best way to win on the chessboard. And I see on chess.com play all these players from all over the world. And, certain countries have a lot of strong chess players, like the Philippines or Russia or India. Even Iran has a lot of strong players, and you see them, and you're playing a person from that country, and they're, because chess.com, they're pairing you against someone who's basically the same rating class competitively. So like Nakamura did an example where he created a new account and tried to get up to 3,000, like strong grandmaster range, and generally to move up 100 points, to move up 200 points, you got winning against players your own strength. You win 8 points a game for play your own strength would take 25 games. So he's got to win 100 some games straight, and like a mastery where I used to be in one class, and now I'm completely above that class. I could win 25 games straight against someone in that class, because you see the board at a deeper level, connect to the patterns in such a way that some of the weaker class, you're going to be able to keep their threats at bay, keeping your own position solid, while at the same time exploiting and taking advantage of their weaknesses. So the stronger play, at the same time, you could be more aggressive, playing towards a win, understanding the weaknesses that you might be creating, doing that, to have a consolidated position where people are making second, third best moves, like I find in stronger players doing to me in the opening. They play the top responses and then a few second, third best moves. Next thing you know, you're lost. All it takes from that computer top level perspective is to make a series of second or third best moves. And on an amateur level, people rarely make the best move and make not only second, third best moves, they make horrible moves constantly. And so I noticed recording my chess streams, it was very difficult to talk through what I was doing, what I was thinking, and because I think I was algorithmically, it's very difficult to talk as quickly. So in chess position, occasionally there's like a major algorithm, like there's just a simple threat or one idea that you're focusing on, and you could say it out. But to express yourself spatially is more important because you say like, okay, control the center. Pieces have more power when they're closer to the center. Talking about coordination of pieces, segments of the board, different ways of expressing oneself that is more spatial than algorithmic. So I think as I could train myself to think more spatially, and it'll improve my chess play. And I think this is also leading forward to your current groundbreaking understanding of consciousness, what the brain knows how to do. So right now you could look at like a computer. We don't necessarily understand how the brain forms a conceptual grasp of the spatial area, how that mechanism works. But let's say we could get the AI understanding. We understand how a computer could do it. How we could program a computer to create vision for a mechanism, like as I did my public study session on driverless cars or something, that we do understand the computer does it, and there could be some like 4-year series or something like that where the mathematicians or Bayesian statistical analysis and these different things where these mathematicians understood in these great mathematical concepts of patterns and numbers, and it turns out that the physical world has been using these patterns the whole time. It's like the ear and hearing, for example, is a mechanistic device that performs a Fourier transform, but before Fourier you described this mathematical concept of a transform, the ear was still performing, your people were still hearing. So it's just a method of describing a phenomenon that's actually happening. And it could be there's other methods of describing it, hence why over the chessboard and the infinite possibilities, people all have a unique style. So Shavuos holiday coming in, hopefully I got some mercy, divine mercy to increase my wisdom. I felt like I'd been a mental overload, but thank God, hopefully I've got it put together to be on the next level of thought and understanding, to you'll be able to put together more complicated patterns and push forward thought and consciousness, and hopefully improve my chess skill ability that demonstrate some of these thought techniques by market improvement in my chess rating. So take care, everyone. Happy holidays. It's the Shavuos holiday, and blessings.